Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Terri Cole Show. I am so excited that you are here. I want to start this episode with a question. Do you ever feel like you walk around angry for no reason? Like very irritable, people getting on your nerves? If you live in New York City or a city, do you find tourists could make you feel homicidal? Are you easy to just jump into that angry place? Do you have road rage? Are you sort of constantly low-grade annoyed all the time? And does it feel like it is for no reason? So I got 2 emails, actually, people asking me to talk about anger. People who feel like, in one of the descriptions, he was saying he just walks around like waiting for a reason to explode. And trust me, if you're looking for one, you will always find one. So in this episode that I am calling Angry for No Reason, here are some hidden reasons and real remedies to deal with that. Because here's the thing. You're not angry for no reason. You're just not clearly seeing what is provoking your anger. Because if you're walking around angry, there is a reason. And even if it's simply modeled behavior, that actually is a reason. So you're not angry for no reason, but why don't we want to walk around angry all the time? I mean, that may sound like a stupid question, like, duh, obviously. But think about it. You might be habituated into this experience. You might be used to being snappy, bitchy, judgmental, whatever it is, exploding on people, bawling out people out in the world, right? Somebody cuts you off. Somebody, you don't like the way a waitress is behaving, being very confrontational. But here's the thing with all of that. Those feelings, those experiences, they don't go around you. They come through you. They are originating from you. So this is a very low vibration, walking around pissed off all the time, that is exhausting. It takes a lot of bandwidth to actually do this. Not to mention the people in your life, being around someone who's always angry, or you're kind of walking on eggshells because you're like, I don't know what's going to set this person off. That is unhealthy, first of all. But think about it. Do you really want the people in your life, if this is you, feeling that way around you? It does not encourage intimacy. It really does encourage people to manage you, sort of deal with you, get out of the way with you, walk on eggshells with you. But that's not the same as people authentically knowing you or loving you. That is different. And I think a lot of times perpetual anger is also a defense mechanism against feeling, against being vulnerable, against a lot of things. But let's just talk about what might be happening in your life, or if you love someone who is this way, you can share this with them. But let's start with what it is. The first thing we look at is, do you come from a long line of angry people? That's real, right? There are family cultures around the way we behave. Some families laugh a lot together. Some families are pissed off all the time about things big and small. Or you're dealing with one person in the family who dominates the family with their feelings. And if you were raised that way, then feeling pissed off all the time, if that was behavior that was modeled for you, that could seem kind of normal. So I'm going to give you, along with this episode, there's going to be a downloadable PDF, like there always is, where you'll have some questions. So these questions will help you identify if you have a downloaded blueprint around sort of perpetual annoyance, feeling put out, anger. They all sort of do the same thing. Being quick to be frustrated about things. It's all basically coming from the same place and does the same thing to you and your relationships, which none of that is good. So modeled behavior, so that's the downloaded blueprint, is the first thing. Then the second thing is about expectations. That when we move into, if you have expectations in life, a lot of times they're not expressed. They're here. They're just in your mind. And then we say things like, well, a normal person would have, any decent person would have known. I mean, come on, it's obvious. those types of things, which basically is a way to not take responsibility for what you want. So I want you to be really aware if you have unexpressed expectations of other people, that can really be a source of anger and frustration, because nobody has a crystal ball. And if you really want something from someone in a relationship, you can't be unexpressed. You actually have to use words and talk about it, which can be hard. But that I find that from the clients that I've had over the many years, that this unspoken expectation and a desire, a need, a want for others to read our minds is really a setup. Well, I mean, you set up your relationships to fail, obviously, because no one can read your mind. But it's also a setup to feel disappointed, angry, pissed off all the time, because, as I said, nobody can read your mind. So the awareness, again, so much of when we get to the remedies, it's going to be about raising your awareness about what you're actually doing. Another thing that I can say for sure is that the moment you start to feel a constriction in a situation, like you're kind of fine and then you're not, it's like, stop and look, what was there a boundary that was just crossed by someone? Is there a need, right? Was there a need that is not getting met in that moment? Because boundaries, and boundaries being crossed with no sort of conversations, can also be a real trigger for anger. And if you were raised, and when I was younger, I had no ability to honestly express myself when I was angry. That was like one of the emotions that we weren't allowed to have, really. And so, or I felt like I couldn't for whatever reason. And no healthy anger was modeled for me. So what ends up happening is if you were raised in a similar way, we end up having to transmute, and not in a good way, that emotion into something more acceptable. So we would take anger and turn it into annoyance. And actually, one of my clients used to always say, she was super rageful, but was in tons of denial about the rage. And she would come in and she would always be fuming about something, whether it was the weather or her subway ride or the cab or the traffic or whatever. And then she would tell me something important about something she was really mad about. And she would use the phrase, I'm really kind of annoyed. Like, no, you're not. You're like homicidal. Like they're not the same thing. And I would always point out, oh, you have a code word. When you're feeling serious anger, you're using a more acceptable term by saying you're annoyed. But in the work we're doing, we really need to name things what they are. Why is it hard to say you're enraged or you're angry at that person? Well, I don't know that I am. In the beginning, I was like, no, you are. Your face, your energy, your body language, the tone of your voice, the way you're delivering the words. Trust me when I tell you, you're angry. And it took a while, but her being angry was unacceptable in her life also growing up. And so it doesn't mean we're not going to be angry. It just means nobody taught us how to be. So we're going to do it in this really ass-backwards way that doesn't help anyone. We don't even know why we're mad. At least in my experience, I would be angry at shit and no idea why. Because I had distilled it down to something more acceptable. Let's say even like sadness. Annoyance was okay, but sadness was also another one. So, but I wasn't sad. I was pissed, and they're different things. So, of course, it took years to uncover and understand, why am I crying when I'm mad? Well, because I never learned how to use language when I'm mad. And as soon as I got some words around my anger, I was able to do it. And you can as well. So acting it out, because here's the thing. A lot of it is we're acting it out. Those lack of boundaries, when you feel that feeling of so that's a boundary being crossed or a need not being met, you've got to be mindful enough to be able to stop and be like, okay, 30 seconds ago, I felt fine, and now I don't. What the F happened? Because something did. And it's important that we're able to take a breath, right? And move into, okay, that happened. what did happen? As soon as we start to be able to identify things is when we have more power to change what's not working. Okay, so another thing that's really common, and it's called displaced aggression. So it is a defense mechanism, one of Anna Freud's defense mechanisms, that if our anger is unacceptable to us, if mine was, we displace the aggression. There's a couple of things that happen, but one of them that I'm very fascinated by is displaced aggression, which, we can give a typical example of what is displaced aggression. You have a terrible day at work and you come home and take it out on your kid, your spouse, your sister, somebody, right? So you're not really mad at them, but you need to discharge this very intense emotion. And without thinking about it, this is a way that your unconscious mind is doing what it needs to do, because we will eventually explode if we hold on to all of that. Now, that's why we want to bring a lot of this crap that's in the basement into the main part of the house, as I would say, right? Your conscious mind, so that you can make a choice. Because A, it isn't fair to displace your aggression on other people, whether they're strangers or whether they're people that you actually care about and love. And it doesn't help, because that situation that made you so mad is probably going to happen again. And so another thing that we do to not deal with what we're really mad at, and sometimes it's because we don't know, but is like, well, I'm just in a pissy mood. I'm in a bad mood. But if you really went back in time and you looked at what happened and you saw what was the precipitating event for your bad mood, when did you turn that corner? A lot of times you'd be able to see, oh yeah, I had an interaction with that person at my office who I can't stand, who I think is judgmental, or whatever. I didn't get the thing that I wanted in whatever the situation. There is a reason. Like the way that we work, the way that our minds work, there is a rhyme or reason. So how do you know if you're having displaced aggression? And this really is, if you look at the quality of how you're feeling, of what you're feeling, if you get really angry really fast at something, it can either be you're displacing aggression about something else, but it's almost like looking at, are you really, really mad at something that when you actually stepped back and looked at it, you're like, wow, that really wasn't such a crime. Like, why am I flipping out about it? That can be like a hint that perhaps you're displacing aggression in one situation that really is about something that you're mad about in another. And a different way of experiencing this is having a transference. When you are responding in one situation, your bully boss, let's say, in it could be a more extreme way, or it could be a more hidden way because you had a bully parent, right? So they're two different ways, but they could both explain why you might be having anger that you don't understand. So that's a little bit more on the therapeutic side. So displaced anger and transference. So all of this will be in your little reasons and remedies. So don't worry, it's a little downloadable thing. And then the last thing I want to talk about what might be causing this, is crappy health habits. So if you're not sleeping enough, if you're drinking too much, if you are watching, too much Netflix, if you're not moving your body, if you don't hydrate, if you eat shit food all the time, right? If you eat a lot of fried foods, if you don't care, if you are physically not healthy, that definitely can inform your mood. So, that is a whole other vlog. I've done some on them before, and I'm sure do it again, about how do we really just get on board with some healthy habits and taking care of ourselves. Because it isn't just, it's interesting. It's like we look around and it used to be in younger life, at least in my younger life, it used to be, well, I want to work out because I want to look a particular way. And then after getting sick and having cancer and stopping drinking and all the things that happened in my life, the moment I had my wake-up call with cancer, it was like it changed my relationship to health. And health became the most important thing in my life. Because I realized, having that scare and having to go through treatment and doing the things that I did for that period of time, that without my health, there was nothing else. There wouldn't be anything else until I managed that or figured that out. I couldn't believe how all-consuming it was to be ill and how incredibly scary it was. So in a way that scared me straight, in the way of at least being aware, going to the doctor, being healthy, taking care of myself. Had I not had that wake up in my early 30s, would I have been as healthy as I've been for the last couple of decades? And probably not. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say, but you don't have to have a cancer diagnosis, right? Because you're watching this or you're listening to this right now. And let this be the wake-up call, because here's the thing about health. It isn't just your mood that it impacts. Follow things forward. Look at people who drink too much and then who drank too much for decades. What happens to their life, their brain, their relationships? Look at that. Be realistic. Be honest with yourself about if you are drinking too much or doing recreational drugs or smoking too much pot or vaping. This shit, we don't even know what the hell that does to your lungs. Like literally we have no idea because it hasn't been around long enough. So I'm not saying be perfect. I'm not saying you have to be Pollyanna. But I am saying that I don't want you waking up in 4 decades from now being like, well, now I'm screwed because I have emphysema or whatever I have. Let those commercials about people whose faces are disfigured from cancer scare you enough to try to get help to stop it if you're still smoking or whatever. Because this is it. As I like to say, I hate to quote Cher, but I will, there is no dress rehearsal for life. Right? We're live right now. This is it. This is what is happening. This is it. So when we like to put things off, and before I had cancer, it was so easy to be like, well, one day and someday and then. No. You have cancer that might shorten your life. You're like, oh my God, like something could shorten this amazing experience. And for me, I suddenly saw it as the incredible gift that wasn't guaranteed me at all. That every moment that I got past that experience was like a bonus moment in life. So did I want to walk around angry all the time? No, I did not. I wanted to be grateful all the time instead and see if that didn't change how I was feeling, which it did. So, all right, moving into, God, just a long way around the barn to get your health shit together because it has to do with everything. So we've basically been through it all. I was sort of doing the remedies as we were going. So you're going to do the downloaded questions, the downloaded anger blueprint questions to see if this behavior was modeled, manage your own expectations. The last thing I want to say about remedies, maybe not the last thing, but mindfulness is really important. Meditation is really important. This creates space. So instead of being a reactor, you can train your mind to be a responder. Even if you only gain 2 seconds, that would change you walking around, going off on people, or even just being angry inside. If you have an extra 2 seconds, you're able to go, you know what, Terri? Take a deep breath. You're passing Central Park. Why don't you look at the beautiful trees and just stop being a jerk? Like, stop judging everyone, because it is so much all about judging others and judging ourselves. You want to become the witness, right? That is the highest level of your own evolution, is being able to witness your own responses, reactions, without judgment. Become curious. That was interesting. I wonder why I did that. Rather than either feeling ashamed of it or making the other person wrong. Yeah, well, if they hadn't done that, okay, it's not about them though, because it's your life. People are always going to do shit that makes us mad. How will you respond to people doing shit? That's your choice. That's your decision. And it's not on them. It's actually on you, And the last thing we talked about is getting your health shit together, being honest about where you are, taking an inventory of your good and bad habits, and seeing what you come up with. So I hope that this episode of the Terri Cole Show added value to your life, because I don't want you walking around life angry all the time or telling people you're angry for no reason, because you're not. You're angry maybe for lots of reasons. But being angry all the time can also be a choice. And once you get some of these skills in your tool belt, you can choose to not be. So if you like the Terri Cole Show, if this adds value to your life, please share it on your social media platforms. If you don't subscribe, please do to the podcast if that's what you do, or YouTube if that's where you are. And also, if you like it, write a good review on iTunes. That would be super nice of you. I appreciate you so much. So thank you for watching, for listening, and for sharing. I hope you have an amazing week, not being angry all the time. And as always, take care of you.